I know entrepreneurship is hard. And since you have worked in 23 countries, what is one single problem that entrepreneurs face, and how can startups and entrepreneurs make sure that they are maintaining good cash flow?
And the truth is that the number one reason that small businesses fail is cash flow. In the case of e-commerce, email marketing is the best marketing tool.
Which makes a good business a great business.
Nobody knows everything about business. I've been doing this for over 25 years, and every single day, I still learn new things about running a business.
What should be the funding process like? Why do you think Canada doesn't have too many businesses which are great businesses? Thank you for joining in, Andrew, on this podcast, Biz Talk with Jyoti. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
All right. It's a pleasure to have you on this podcast. I know you have 25 years of experience and you have trained over 100,000 small businesses in 23 countries. So, how did your journey begin into this?
Okay, so I've always been a business owner, but I started off as a retailer. I
Hmm.
was involved in retail. And then what happened in the area I was working in, we had a small business support center, like many cities have across Canada and in different parts of the world. And they were closing down the small business center. So I convinced them to not close it down and to let me take it over and educate, train, mentor, and coach business owners. And I've been doing that for over 25 years. So started off as a entrepreneur, then got into educating and training business owners, and have been doing it for over 25 years.
Okay. So, what is one story of any entrepreneur that you have come across that has really inspired you?
Geez, so there's hundreds of stories, to be honest with you. So, uh, you know, I think that's what makes my job very rewarding, is that I work with ordinary business owners that have got an idea that start up and go on to become extremely successful. And my favorite stories are of people that I've worked with that have become number one in the industries globally. And I've got quite a few of those. So those are my favorite stories, is where somebody starts off with really right at the beginning and not really know what they're doing, and they go on to become extremely successful. And I've got a lot of case studies like that. People that are involved in employment agencies, people involved in selling dried fruit and nuts, people involved in uh, service businesses and product businesses. So there's a lot of really inspiring stories. And the story is basically always the same. Somebody comes up with a great idea. Typically, they'd come on a program with me and they'd learn how to create a business plan. They'd work very, very hard for usually 10 or so years, uh, persevere and eventually build a great business. But the commonalities between all of these people are they have a great product, they're very, very determined, and they never give up. So the same story repeats itself over and over again. These are inspired people that want to make a difference in the world.
Okay. So, what key takeaway I got from this particular thing was that you are saying people should have a good product. They have perseverance and they're ready to do hard work. They should go the extra mile, right?
Exactly.
Perfect. Absolutely. So, I know entrepreneurship is hard. Everybody says that people who are into entrepreneurship, they are wearing many hats at the same time. And since you have worked in 23 countries, what is one single problem that globally, entrepreneurs face?
Actually, it's very interesting because the challenges that businesses face are the same in every single country. It really doesn't make any difference. Usually, the typical story, um, business owners can't raise enough capital.
Mm.
Every single country I go to, they'll say the system is unfair and this and that. So that's the one thing. And then the second thing is really getting enough customers, so being really good at marketing and sales. I think finance or raising finance will be always an issue for small business. I didn't think it's ever going to go away. Actually, almost convinced it'll never go away. But I think it's really important that people focus on marketing and sales. That's really the key to building a successful business. And on my training programs, I advise people to really become good at marketing and sales. Because the truth is that that solves most challenges in a business. If you become good at marketing and sales and understand the financials, you can build a successful business. And I don't think it matters what country you're in. Really, it doesn't matter. It's finding those customers, convincing them to buy your product or service is the same things apply. I mean, the finances, obviously, one, raising finance is a big issue. But the second one is really, finding customers.
Right. Absolutely. And how do you find, I mean, if there is a small business owner or there is a startup entrepreneur, um, how does the cash flow and maintaining that come into picture, and how can startups and entrepreneurs make sure that they are maintaining good cash flow in their business? Because I think when you talk about financing, a lot of pitfall comes into startups when they don't know how they
Yeah.
are going to manage their cash flow.
I think a lot of research has been done on the failure rate of small business. And the truth is that the number one reason that small businesses fail is cash flow. That's number one reason.
Mm-hmm.
So my advice always to small business is every year what you've got to do is you've got to create a cash flow forecast, projecting what money is going to flow into your business and out of your business for the next 12 months. And then what you want to do is every month, at the end of every month, you want to go in and update your cash flow forecast. Because the truth is, it doesn't matter how brilliant your product is or brilliant your service is or what a great operator you have. If you run out of cash flow, you're out of business. So managing cash flow is really key. So
Mm-hmm.
you've got to understand it first, and secondly, manage it. But the thing is that you are the person that needs to manage it. You can have a bookkeeper or an accountant or anybody that works with you in the business, but this is your responsibility. So making sure that you create a cash flow forecast at the beginning of the year, updating it on a monthly basis, I think is really, really smart. It's what I do and I've done since the beginning of my business.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There are many small businesses or entrepreneurs who have come to you. Maybe, they are launching e-commerce brands or, products which are going to sell digitally only.
Yeah.
So in that case, how do you think network plays a role in scaling that business? How can they scale from offline perspective and from online perspective?
So, I mean, e-commerce has obviously grown a lot, especially over the last 10 years. But my thoughts are really quite simple. Whether you're selling a product online or offline, the basic same principles apply. If people need your product or services, they're going to seek it out. But the truth is, if you decide that online is your key form of selling your product or service, what you must have is a really good online marketing strategy. Doing really simple things like making sure you collect people's emails. Every single time somebody comes to your website, you have a way of collecting their data. Or even if you just communicating with people out there, you want to get people's data. You know, this is with their permission, obviously, which is an important thing. But you want to build an email database because one of your best ways of selling, whether it's offline or online, your product or service is by having people's information so you can message them on a regular basis. And I
Abs-
still think that in the case of e-commerce, email marketing is the best marketing tool. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you need to have your website optimized. You need to be optimized for search engines. And nowadays, as a business owner, you've got this big advantage because we've got things like ChatGPT that help us make sure that we can use keywords that our customers are using and things like that. So it's really developing an online marketing strategy and making sure that all the little things are right. Your website is set up for SEO. You set up on Google My Business so that people can find you. You regularly collect information, you update your website, it looks professional. If you're selling products, the photographs need to be good. But the same principles apply offline. I mean, if you're doing retail offline, it's exactly the same thing. You want to be collecting a database of emails. When people walk into your store, it needs to look professional, the service needs to be professional, all of those things. I find that very, very often with small business. In our early days, we're all excited and we do all these things right. But as our businesses grow and scale, sometimes we get a little bit lazy, and that really concerns me. So I don't think that there's too much difference between online and offline. The advantage of offline is you've got people walking in on your business. The disadvantage of online is you don't have people walking in on your business. But the advantage that you have online is people can stumble upon you by doing searches and things like that. So, but the strategies are basically the same, except one is online and offline, but the basic principles are the same. Do I think e-commerce is a massive opportunity? Absolutely. But it's not as easy as it looks. Like any business, people think, well, I'll just put a couple of products online and I'll make money. It just doesn't work like that.
True. So, what are the key factors do you think, which makes a good business a great business?
So I think there's a bunch of things that you need to do. I think if you want to become a successful business owner, there are a few things you need to do. Firstly, you need to find mentors. They can advise you, guide you, inspire you, all of those things. You need to do that. You need to find yourself some mentors, people that are in business. They don't have to be in the same industry as you, but you want to find mentors that you can go to. The second thing, you need to keep yourself motivated and inspired. I think this is very, very important that you, as a business owner, if you're having a bad day, a bad week, a bad month, or going through some really difficult mental health issues because of the pressure or the stress that your business puts you under, you need to have somebody that you can go and speak to that can advise you, guide you, and ideally somebody that's a business owner, because being a business owner is really quite unique. I don't think people understand that have worked for a boss the challenges that we go through, the insecurities we go through, the times that we're very confident in ourselves, and other times we second guess ourselves. And I think most of us are guilty of that as business owners. Even though we do great work and we have a great business, we always think there's something better we can do, or we sometimes our worst critics. The third thing I think that makes a successful business owner is to learn how to become very good at networking. You've got to be really good at that. You've got to create relationships with people. So you got to go to events, you got to introduce this, and you never stop doing this. It's not something you do in the early days, but many times we've picked up really large contracts. We've been at an event, we'll meet somebody, we'll introduce ourselves, we'll tell them a little bit about what we do, and then later on we do business. And some of our biggest contracts have come from that. And I think as a small business owner, you've got to learn to do this. You've got to try and identify who your ideal customer is, and then go to events where these ideal customers hang out and just introduce yourself. And you'll be amazed at how much business you pick up. And this has got to be, so you've got to be very, very targeted. You've got to be doing this regularly. And then the fourth thing that I think really influences successful businesses is to keep learning. I mean, there's seminars, there's webinars, there's books. You got to keep learning. Nobody knows everything about business. I've been doing this for over 25 years, and every single day, I still learn new things about running a business. And I think you need to understand. You need to know every single part of your business and have a good understanding of it. You need to know how to do marketing. You need to know how to do sales. You need to understand the financials. So keep learning is a really, really important thing. And then the most successful businesses that I work with are often businesses that produce a great product. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's got to be a great product. But when customers buy their product or service, or when customers interact with them, they really wow. They're surprised by, and that's really, I think, the key to building a successful business is business owners that really want to build a great business, and then their customers speak about their product and speak about their service because they know that they're putting all effort. I think that is really the key.
Great. Um, while I also interact with so many business owners, I have come across, some businesses who are developing products, who have good products, but they are so persistent and so focused on getting the perfect product that they don't go ahead and launch it because they are not getting the perfect thing. So, do you advise getting that perfection is very important, or just go ahead and launch it and then you bring in perfection in that product or service?
Yeah, I don't believe in perfection. I think perfection is a dangerous thing. I really, really think a dangerous thing. And and I've seen this many times over the years that people want to get the perfect product, the perfect service. The truth is that most of us that are business owners, people that have been in business for a long time, like me, when we initially launched our products or services, they were far from perfect. And I think that is really the key. When you have a good product, you want to put it onto the market. Over time, you'll make it a great product. But the point is, it's about putting products out there, and even services. I mean, it really doesn't make any difference whether you selling a product or a service. I think the key thing, yeah, is you want to put good products in the market, and then you want to perfect them. Just be very, very careful. I mean, just think of any product that we use on a daily basis. They didn't start out like that. They often started as something a little bit more inferior. Then over time, when they got, they interacted with their customers and things like that, the product perfected itself or got better. And I think there's no perfect product. And I think that's really the key is you wanna try and launch products and services, and you want to fail quickly. That's really what you want to be doing. So you want to put something in the market. If it's working, you want to keep doing it. If it's not working, you want to just stop doing it. And so failing often, I think, is a good strategy, and waiting for perfection is just not does not make any sense as a business owner.
Perfect. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And definitely it makes more sense, how you put it. Now, I've also come across, a couple of startups that I interacted with, and, you know, some of them say that I'm happy and enjoying, I'm satisfied with what I have at the moment. So I just want to know, as we are growing the startup ecosystem, are we celebrating the startup ecosystem so much that people find comfort in being the startup and they're not looking at scaling, or the ambition to scale is a little bit loose now?
I think with anybody, we're all motivated by different things. Certain people will start a business just because they want a lifestyle business. Other people will start a business because they want to really scale and make a difference in their community. And I think as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a startup, whatever you want to call yourself, I think you need to decide what you want. I don't think everybody's got the potential to build a massive business. I don't believe that. And I don't think everybody wants to do. There are
Mm,
certain people, and I've met many business owners like that, is that they just want the simple life. They want a great business, make a great product, great service, and they want to enjoy being a business owner, and they like the freedom and the maybe the money and things like that. And then there's other business owners, and I've met a bunch of them too over the years, that really want to become the big. They want to employ hundreds of people, thousands of people, whatever it is. But the key thing is, I don't think that everybody's made to do that. Obviously, if we can identify those people that really want to scale, and those are the people that create jobs in communities and things like that, we should nurture them and mentor them and things like that. But I don't think every business owner wants to become this major success story. I think some people actually thrive on keeping their business simple, making enough to feed themselves and their family, and are very, very proud of their product or service. And I think there's space in the market for everyone, those that really scale and those that want to stay small.
mhm. No, absolutely. Everybody's ambition is different for sure.
Yeah.
So, so say suppose a startup is very interested in scaling and going the big way. Do you think startups should approach funding differently? Say, suppose, do you think startups, if they're developing a good product, they should look at what should be the funding process like? Should they take seed funding, or should they go into more investor led funding, and things like that?
Here's the thing: I think most startups are actually very difficult to fund. And the
Mm,
reason they're very difficult to fund is because the failure rate of small business is so high. So, and if you're going to seed fund a business, you're not going to really fund the idea, you're going to fund the entrepreneur. And trying to determine who are those people that are going to become very successful is a really difficult business, I must be honest. So if I was doing a startup, I would probably not look for funding too early, because what happens as soon as you take money from anybody, you know, you've basically created a situation where you report to somebody. Somebody wants to know, how you're doing and things like that. And that's often the reason we become entrepreneurs, because we don't want anybody to tell us what to do. So timing is very, very important when it comes to raising money for your business, if that's the route you're going to go. I still like businesses to bootstrap, especially in the early days. But the truth is, raising money very early, if it's your first startup, is going to be very, very difficult. Doesn't matter what the business is. Your second and third makes it so much easier if you've proved yourself before. But if I was doing a brand new startup, what I would do is I would try and survive for the first 3 years and then go and look for fun. And the reason is, the first 3 years often of a business are the most challenging. They're the chaotic years. You're trying to prove your product or your service, whatever it is. If you can survive 3 years, it makes it much easier to raise capital. But raising capital is not for everybody. I must be honest, it's not for everybody, because with capital it becomes this big responsibility. If you've taken my 20,000 or 50,000 or 100,000 or $1 million, I want 10 times that amount of money. And because I want 10 times that amount of money, you've got to prove to me that you're going to be successful. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, the earlier you raise money, the more equity you're going to give away. The more equity you have to give away, because you've got nothing to prove. You say to somebody, well, this is going to work. And basically, it's your word against mine. You saying it's going to work, I'm not sure if it's going to work. So what's going to happen is you're going to give up a lot of equity that you don't have to. So timing of when you raise capital is very, very important. The earlier you raise it, the more difficult it is, and the more equity you're going to give away. The later you raise it, the less equity you have to give, and the easier it is, because you've got a record. You've got 3 years of sales and expenses to be able to prove that your idea is good. And I think raising money for ideas is always going to be very challenging. I don't think it's ever going to be easy, because we've seen it. If you speak to investors or venture capitalists or anybody, angel investors, we know that 1 in 10 deals are going to succeed. The rest are going to fail. So trying to work out what is that one deal that's going to work among 10 is really a difficult thing.
right. um so say, suppose you're a venture capitalist and you're looking at a startup to invest in. What are the key factors do you think you will look at when you think a business is investable?
So I'm not a venture capitalist, so I'm not sure exactly what they look for, but I understand basically they want something that is really scalable, is the barriers to entry are high, so you can't just start up. Not anybody can start up something like that, and it's got the potential to dominate a sector. So those are the ideas that will get venture capital. I mean, angel investments are different uh, investment, but when it comes to venture capital, where you're speaking of amounts over $2 million and things like that, those things are, when it comes to venture capital, it's got to be, barriers to entry need to be high. It needs to be a unique idea that's got potential to dominate the market and do hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. That is what venture capitalists are looking for. So, and you know what, 99.9% of businesses will probably never apply for venture capital because it's just for those unique businesses that are going to revolutionize and change the world. And I mean, in Canada, the truth is we don't have too many of those. We have a few here and there. We've got a couple that have raised quite a lot of money, but we don't have that many that venture capitalists get involved in. So or the other one is that there must be an exit strategy. So if the idea or the project or the service is so great that potentially a competitor is going to want to buy it, then venture capitalists would be interested. But venture capitalism is it's not something I do and not something that I'll probably ever do. But it's also a very small percentage of business owners will have access to venture capital.
Right. You use the term, you said in Canada there are very few. Why do you think Canada doesn't have too many businesses which are great businesses or which are, for the world business?
Well, obviously we've got a smaller population.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the factors. Also, uh, what happens in Canada is a capitalist country, but it's also got quite a lot of socialism. So what happens is when you have some of these processes that support you, uh, that ambition is not as much as it should be. But on the other hand, I still think we've created some great businesses in this country. Per capita, I think if you compare it to most countries that I've worked in the world, I think we're a very entrepreneurial country. Entrepreneurs are respected here, they're supported, they all those type of things. But I think it's also a Canadian way of thinking is that maybe we'll become the best in our region or in our province or maybe even in our country, but growing internationally, which is really what you need to do to scale a company, is not always our priority. And I don't think it's. Uh, I mean, it's a good thing if we scale internationally, but it's not everybody's wish to do that. A lot of us, if we do grow, usually we would grow to the south and start doing some business in the US, which makes absolutely sense. Absolute, makes a lot of sense. But also on the other hand, because that market is so easily accessible, it stops us from growing internationally because we can live really well off just our local market and supplying the US market. And I think that's maybe one of the reasons. But I still think we're quite entrepreneurial. I mean, I've met some great business owners in this country. You know, but also the thing I find, and again, it depends on where you are. But for example, in the US, I think it's a little bit more entrepreneurial, but also more competitive. So in Canada, you can quite easily start your own business and survive, and probably have a good life as an entrepreneur, but maybe not make the millions of dollars that if you launched in a country with over 300 million people like the US. So, and I think, what, ambition's an important thing, but so is quality of life. And I think Canadians think, you know, it's quite important to have a good quality of life. And I think that's one thing um, that we after. It also makes you happier if you have a good quality of life.
Right. Absolutely. So that brings me to the end of all the questions that I had, Andrew. Thank you so much
Sure.
for joining in.
You're welcome.
And I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I thoroughly did enjoy the conversation. So that was the end of the conversation. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and learned something from it. Please like, share, and subscribe Biz Talk with Jyoti to hear more such conversation. Thank you.